Minute. Hey,
Hey, Doc, what's up?
thanks for joining me. What I would love is just to have you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then I just want to get into your take on everything that's going down here with this whole pandemic, scandemic, COVID situation. So, tell me
Awesome.
about you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot to get into. Thanks for having me, Dr. Ben. Yeah, so I was really sick as a kid from age 13 on, really. So I suffered with crazy pain all over my body, had to quit playing sports, anxiety, depression. I was on medications for these, migraines, vertigo, and GI issues. So by the time I was
Wow.
18 years old, I could barely get through school. My brain fog was so terrible, I could barely function in high school. Again, I had to quit playing some sports. I was pretty much helpless. I was on 5 medications when I was 18 and went through the conventional medicine route. And, I had all the tests ran, all the MRIs, CT scans, ENGs, EEGs, all the blood tests, and they all came back normal. I'm sure you heard that before. And then
I've been through that myself. Yeah.
yeah. So every medical doctor's like, it's just probably genetics. You have to deal with it the rest of your life. Just take these medications, keep taking them for the rest of your life. And, at one point I'm like, I'm so sick. I'm on all those medications already. What's it going to look like in 20, 30, 40 years when I still feel like crap, but I'm on 10 more medications? So when I was at my rock bottom, I had to make a decision of I'm going to step outside this conventional medical model, which it's not a bad model. It's great for emergency stuff and things like that. Not so great for healing, repairing, doing a lot of things for people that we work with. So I got hooked up with, great, super smart, naturally minded doctors like chiropractors and functional medicine docs that were like, the body's made to heal. There's something in your body that's causing you to break down. So I went to chiropractic school, still wasn't a whole lot better, got into functional medicine. And that's what really took, over my journey. So going through and getting rid of things like parasites and rebalancing the gut, working on mold toxicity, detoxification, balancing hormones. All that was just huge for me. My brain woke up again. My energy was back. I could play sports and put on muscle again. So that's where I came through. It's where I'm at now. So DC by trade, but I ended up getting an internal diagnosis diplomate, and then I've been doing functional medicine and training ever since. So I love helping people kind of go through the same route that I went, that they're hopeless. They've been to all these docs. They don't know what's going on. They're tired. Their brain doesn't work. Everything is off. And I know, just being in the natural health field, you're probably the same. People are sick today. They're sicker than ever, and they just want people to tell them straight what's going on, They're sick of docs and people telling them, oh, just kick the can down the road and see me in a year. We don't have time for that. I believe we're all here on earth for a purpose. And if we feel like crap all day, it's hard to do that,
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
That's my quick spiel, Doc. Thanks for having me.
It's pretty similar to mine, although all that hit me not till I was 28. So,
Gotcha.
but very, very similar journey. So, when you first heard about this COVID thing rearing its head beginning of the year, what were your thoughts? Was it just sort of like, you think it was going to be a big deal? What was your first kind of gut check response?
So, I read about it when I was back in China, just starting out and looking ahead of it, and that'll probably stay in China, won't hit us. And then now it's coming to America. And then, people started really freaking out, and it was being so, the fear level was pushed so much that at one point I was like, dang, this might be something, we need to look into this and see what's really going on. Cause they're like, millions are going to die. It spreads on surfaces for 17 days. Asymptomatic or spreading for weeks at a time. The way they played it up, you're like, wow, that sounds serious, as time has progressed, we know that a lot of those things came to be untrue. But yeah, in the beginning, it was, wow, let's take a look and see what's going on here. let's really work on boosting our immune system. Let's maybe be a little more clear about, you know, how we're hygiene, things like that. But as I said, as time has progressed, so many things have opened, and the narratives have shifted so many times, and things have been proven false or untrue, that it makes you just scratch your head. You know, if it was like one of the things, you could be like, okay. But when it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 things that are all iffy, it's like, okay, now what's up?
Yeah, definitely. It's, you know, and I'm amazed at how some people have just gone along with, oh, no, I am supposed to wear a mask. No, I'm not. Oh, I am. Well, I'll just do whatever they say. And this idea of even questioning it is like, it's just above reproach and above questioning. It's mind-blowing.
Sure.
So,
and I think, you know, here we are where common sense and people who actually do research are being shoved to the wayside and saying, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Where, in fact, you know, the people like us and the people that follow myself and follow you, they're the ones doing research. You know, they're the ones really looking into this and trying to come at it with a different perspective of, I'm not going to just take what's fed to me at face value. I'm going to look deeper and actually see what's going on.
So let me ask you this. Before 2020, did you ever have a video or a post or anything like that, like fact-checked or pulled down or censored?
No, isn't that weird? Yeah. So again, that's just one of the things, the doctor censorship, not even doctor, health censorship that goes along with this is one thing that you have to kind of wonder. Why would the mainstream media, big tech companies, try to censor viewpoints, potential cures, natural cures, or conventional medicine cures? Like anything that goes against their official narrative is just pulled down. You're just shunned, or your lives are destroyed, your licenses is revoked. Like that just sends off a lot of signals in my head. That's, wait a sec. Like these doctors were talking over here about all the lives they've saved with this treatment, and all these doctors have said the same thing. Why won't the news let me hear that? You know?
Yeah,
That's right.
It's amazing that people are just going, oh, well, they were wrong, so of course we had to censor them and shut them down. Like,
yeah,
that was not happening before this year, and I guess, I don't know, it's never happened to me until this year where I actually got, like, things I said, like, you know, warnings or strikes, or had a couple of things taken down or fact-checked.
Sure.
That was definitely a rude awakening. Like, things are not as they seem.
Sure. And it's a slippery slope, you know? Like, if they say, oh, we're going to censor this because it's misinformation. We're going to censor this because it's hate speech. We're going to censor this. And all of it comes back to, it's whatever they want to censor, they can censor. You know, at some point. So all the people that are for it, what if next month they're censoring your stuff? That's, it's just something to think about, you know?
Yeah, and I see things like happening, like what's happening in Australia. You know, if that was happening to you and you were like, you know, under house arrest or whatever, and you wanted to speak out against, and you were censored, you'd kind of wish you'd spoken up about censorship before it got to that point.
Sure.
So you're in Missouri, right? What's the situation there?
In Missouri, I'm in St. Louis. Missouri is decently lax, but certain municipalities, like I'm in St. Louis, so the city of St. Louis still has some ordinances. They have mask ordinances. You know, some businesses are still at a low percentage capacity, things like that. But you know, the mask mandate thing's so fun to me, especially things like restaurants, where you put your mask on to walk in the front door, and then you sit down and you take your mask off. Like, seriously? What did that really do? But to your point on, you know, things like Australia, they've gone from zero to martial law in a matter of just a couple of months. And so some people are like, well, what's the big deal? Like, just wear a mask. What's the big deal? Just close your business. What's the big deal? You know, just get the vaccine. What's the big deal? And then you look at, we actually have examples, Australia and New Zealand right now, you know, they've locked down parts of the countries, and they're talking about forcing vaccinations on the entire population. So I'm a big medical freedom guy. I think that any procedure that has inherent risk involved cannot be constitutionally forced upon a whole population against their will. You know, because once that happens, if the government, local municipality, whatever, can make you do something against your will, they can do it. All doors are open at that point. They can do anything.
Yeah, although I would say it's probably, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm dreaming too small. Of things I'd like to be forced against my will, vaccination is probably like the worst of them. Especially considering, you know, I mean, in the past, they've taken 10.7 years on average to bring a vaccine to market. Now they're doing it in, you know, 10% of that time.
Sure.
Yeah, like the repercussions, the side effects are unknown. Like,
Sure. Well, on they did some study. I think it was the 2002. I think SARS outbreak in Asia, and they were doing some animal studies on a vaccine for that. And the first trials were great. You know, they produced antibodies. This is awesome. But then later, like months later, they found that these animals were creating this hyperimmune response called antibody dependent something, ADE, wherein, you know, their immune system is essentially heightened, and they're in this cytokine storm of increased inflammation nonstop. And they were like, holy crap, they had to shut it down, had to pull it. But that's where we are now. You know, they went through these trials of the first couple rounds where 80% of the participants had severe reactions on the highest dose, actually. But now, yeah, they're rushing it through, and it's only been a few months, and they're like, oh, everyone's great. How do you know that?
yeah, and the animal studies where they can legally do a challenge, like you talked about, like in a human study, ethically, you're not allowed to expose them to the pathogen and see what happens. And so in the old, you know, SARS vaccine study, they could, with the ferrets, they could actually expose them to the virus and then see what happened. And they saw this effect where it actually made the condition worse. Well, to fast track the vaccine, we just had to skip that inconvenient step. So how do we know if that doesn't happen?
Yeah,
it's pretty mind blowing.
right.
So you have mask mandates there.
And
Is it? How does it? Are you able to get around it? Are you able to just tell people I have a medical exemption? How are you handling that? Or how are you telling people to handle that?
yeah, I mean, you know, some businesses, and here's the thing, like, I feel for small businesses that don't want to enforce this. I mean, businesses don't want to do that. Like, they want people to come and spend money in their stores, you know? I think I read a report, 7.5 million businesses are on the brink of shutting for good. So that's a big deal in America. And it's a huge part of our infrastructure too. So I try to be considerate of those businesses. You know, usually I say, I have a medical condition. And, you know, a lot of them are pretty good about it. Some of my patients, they literally cannot wear masks. They'll have an instant flare up. Because I see a lot of patients with chronic inflammatory response syndrome, a lot of anemia, a lot of autoimmune disease, mold toxicities, where if they get decreased oxygen for even not even a minute, their entire system goes haywire. So for them, you know, I write a note for them and say, hey, you know, it's deleterious for this person to wear a mask to deplenish or deplete their oxygen levels for any period of time. So some businesses are okay, some are not with it. It's just, I feel like everyone right now is on such a heightened alert, and there's so many people out there just looking to call out the people who aren't wearing masks, you know? And there's a great post I saw the other day, and it said, don't be a mask hole. You know, the people who aren't wearing masks, it's not necessarily that they want grandmas to die or they're super selfish. Maybe they do have anemia. Maybe they have a respiratory condition. Maybe they do have chronic inflammatory response syndrome. They can't physically wear a mask. You see the 2 boys that died in China because they were forced to wear a mask during gym class. Like, mask mandates across an entire population that's never been studied, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like you talked about before with, you know, if there's a risk, there's got to be a choice. And at this point, we're learning the risks as we go along.
Right.
And so it's pretty frightening.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for people on how to handle what's going on? I mean, if they, you know, like if they want to have their best shot at staying well, not spreading the disease to others, at the same time, maintaining their freedoms, what do you prescribe? What's your advice to people watching?
Yeah, and I read a lot of studies, and some of the videos I made. Vitamin D is probably one of the biggest, easiest things to do for prevention, not just COVID, anything. It's such a great immune system modulator, but we see it also helps with things like radiation exposure and damage. It keeps you from going into that cytokine storm. That's what most people are dying of. When this is happening, is their immune system gets so hyper reactive and starts attacking tissues in your own body. So vitamin D, they had a study in Asia, and they showed those with the lowest vitamin D, those are the people that died. Those are the people who had the most severe reactions. They couldn't recover. Those with the highest vitamin D, they barely know they had it. So vitamin D is like, get sunshine, get outside, walk in nature, de-stress. I mean, that is the biggest thing, and if get your vitamin D levels checked. If they're not within a good range, I would supplement. I like vitamin D levels around 70-ish, 75. I don't know about you. That's where I kind of like them. But there's also studies on vitamin C and quercetin. There's also a great study there, how they block viral entry into the cells. They stop viral replication. And it's like these, decently small dosages that you can do every day that keeps the immune system in check, prevents illness. Of course, you look at things like comorbidities, Dr. Ben, and you look in Italy, I said 99% of the people that died had at least one comorbidity. 50%, they had 3 or more comorbidities. In America, it's 94%. Those with the comorbidity are people that are dying. So
for the people who aren't doctors, you say the word comorbidity. Explain a little bit so they understand what you mean by that.
Thank you, Doc. A comorbidity is just another illness or chronic illness that you would have that could make things like having a virus like COVID-19 worse. So the big ones that they talk about and document are hypertension, so high blood pressure, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity. So these, if you have, one of those 4, your risk for, having a severe event with something like an infection, especially COVID, is extremely higher. So then, this is a great time for us as a nation to look back and say, all the damage we've done to our bodies here for the last 3, 4, 5 decades, hey, it's rearing its ugly head right now. So diet, lifestyle are more important than ever. We can't just wait for a vaccine, because what if there's a different virus next year? We can't outrun, out-vaccinate, hand sanitize viruses and bacteria for the rest of our lives. It's just not physically possible. There's trillions of them everywhere. So I've been really leaning into the diet, lifestyle, and then nutrients, simple stuff, vitamin D, vitamin C, quercetin.
Yeah, I've heard, you probably heard this phrase before, that you can't medicate your way out of problems you behave your way into.
That's great.
And I think, you mentioned, like, next year, what if there's another virus? Are we going to just scramble and do the same thing? Are we going to try to scramble for a warp speed vaccine? We haven't even shown that it works at this point. I think we're going to, it's like you said, we're just going to keep running around and causing all these other problems. And so, you got to ask yourself, am I going to work on my own health, or am I just going to really hard and hope that, whoever throws enough money at a vaccine or at a cure or whatever, that somehow the pharmaceutical companies who don't have the greatest track record are suddenly going to step in and save the day. Not where I want to make bets.
Yeah, and it's what's sustainable too, And I forgot microbiome support, which is so huge because 80% of the immune system's in the gut. But we have to think about, and what I've been preaching also is, you are in charge of your own health, right? And I'm sure you preach this too, Dr. Ben, is the second you rely on other people, everyone else to wear a mask or everyone else to vaccinate, you've given away all of your power. You have everything you need inside of you to heal, repair, to be healthy. And so if we can flood the body with nutrients and good foods and sunlight, oxygen, sleep, exercise, all the things that it needs, we're designed to heal and thrive.
I totally agree. And if there were a way, like if that actually worked, of like abdicating your power, like we wouldn't be in this predicament. Like if it was easy to just like kind of cruise and, you know, sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and hope that you don't get sick, if that worked, like we wouldn't have this problem.
Right.
And so, like, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It's like your health just happens to be dependent on you and nobody else. So we got a question. What do you think about herd immunity? Have we achieved it? Will we achieve it? How does that play into what's going on?
It's a great question. So I just watched something. Del Bigtree at the High Wire he broke this down the other day. It was really good, I thought, because we've been thinking in terms of antibody response. So the immune system can respond to different pathogens in different ways, and we've been thinking this antibody thing the whole time, right? Which is, vaccines make antibodies, but we now think it could be a little more cell mediated or T cell driven. So they were talking about these studies coming out saying, oh, actually more people have resistance to COVID than we thought, just from like a similar family of viruses, like coronavirus family, which is like the common cold from last year. If you had those, your T cells could have produced these helper cells or these memory cells to attack and break down things like COVID-19 also. So that makes the herd immunity percentage we need much smaller, 10, 20%-ish is what they were estimating. Sometimes they think I think it's like 60-ish% you have to get herd immunity, maybe a little bit more depending on like the virus or whatever it is. But I'm thinking it's down, they were thinking it's down closer to maybe 20%. If you extrapolate out the number of deaths, like the number of cases, so the CDC says the death rate right now is 0.26%, right? 0.26%. So if you extrapolate that out from the 118,000 deaths, I think it came up with like 50-something million, which is what, 1 in 6 people in America have it. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head. 15%-ish maybe. So, but what we did, we pushed everyone in their homes. We didn't let anyone come out. We made everyone wear a mask. If you look at Sweden's graph, for instance, and almost all of the Europe countries, they had that spike and then they went down and they're done. And then you look at ours, we're the only one with a second blip, so that's, again, something to think about. But herd immunity, it's important and it's a real thing.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the whole T cell thing. That's you can't induce that from a vaccine, at least not any of the vaccine technologies we have now. They all work with the humoral immune system, right?
Right.
So we can't, if that's how people end up being immune to this thing, we're throwing a lot of money at a solution that's not even going to get us there, right?
Correct. I mean, that's a huge question. Like, yeah, before we go down that path, hey, did anyone look into T cells? And
you know what? I have a friend who actually, there was some like live thing with Tony Fauci was giving an update on like, here's what we're doing with the vaccine research and here's how it's coming along. And she asked the question, well, what about T cell immunity? I hear that people are getting T cell immunity to this disease. Is the vaccine going to address that? And then boom, instantly kicked off the call. So,
crazy, huh?
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
wild. It's wild how much money has control of health. That's what's a little bit scary.
Yeah. I think, at the time, it didn't seem like much, but when we allowed pharmaceutical companies to advertise on TV back in 1997, we didn't quite know the cascade that would happen, how they would essentially, pay so much money in advertising dollars that they could call the shots at the news media, and then pretty much, now we're in 2020, they can basically dictate what the media does and it does not say. So
yeah, 5% of the world's population, and we take 70% of the world's prescription medications. So
I had not heard that one. That is absurd. And I'm sure you're seeing the people that come into your office who like, they tell you what they're on. You're like, how are you alive?
Exactly. Yep.
All right. Well, Dr. Seth, I know you got a limited amount of time, and I don't want to keep you on forever. But any last closing remarks? Anything you want to charge people with? Any words of wisdom you want to end on here?
I think the big things are, and I'm sure your listeners are already involved, but like we said, your health is in your hands and your hands alone. I think individual health responsibility is important more than ever, and helping other people understand that. I think there's so much fear out there now. Every time you turn on the news, you see the uptick in coronavirus cases. You see someone die. You see this. We have to get out of this fear mode, and we have to remember that our bodies are divinely made, and we're made to heal, to thrive, and to live. We're not meant to be stuck inside our houses, scared to go outside and breathe fresh air and get sunlight. I'm working on putting together kind of all of my research into one spot. So just follow me on Instagram if you want to be updated with that, and I'll be sure, because I want to help make change. People are asking, how do we make change? How do we make change? And I think education is key, because when there's so much truth and light out there, you can't hide the stuff anymore. So I think that's a big thing, and I love what you're doing, Doc. So I think if everyone just keeps sharing the truth and like the actual stats, the actual numbers, actual stories, we're gonna get out of this, and I think we're gonna be fine.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Doc. And thanks for doing this. Catch you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Doc.